This is Larry Jordan, the host of the Digital Production Buzz. The following interview is an excerpt from a recent program. To hear the entire program, visit digitalproductionbuzz.com.
I love prompters. One of the reasons I like prompters, they help me solve the problem of the fact I can't memorize anything to save my life. And one of the companies that makes prompters is CueScript. And here at BVE, I want to learn more about how prompters work and how you pick the right prompter. I want to introduce Michael Accardi. Michael is the co-founder and president of CueScript. Michael, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Start by describing why did you decide to start CueScript in the first place?
Well, I've been in the industry, and my partners have been in the industry for quite a while, and we've been part of other prompting companies, and we just found that there was room for innovations, some really creative ways to do things that would make prompting a lot easier to use and a lot better for the productions.
Innovations in what way?
We have a system that if you want to go in the field, you can take it apart, put it together. There's absolutely no tools necessary. There's no loose parts. We have a rigidity to the unit so that you don't introduce any movement into the camera moves. It's just a better unit all around. The quality of the monitors themselves, they're brighter, they're easier to read. We've taken out the considerations of having the right inputs because now we have composite HD SDI, we have VGA. We've really put it all in there so that you don't get caught off guard.
One of the challenges with prompters is cameras have different heights for the lenses from the tripod.
Right.
What device do we need to put the lens in the middle of the prompter so people are looking at the most prompter screen they can get?
There's a couple of different ways to do that. One of the ways is to have what's called a riser, which will hold the camera higher or low depending on where you need it. And the second way is actually to have a mount that's adjustable so you can put the monitor lower or higher. We have both options available. We like using the mount as the proper way because now I don't bring the center of gravity higher than it needs to be. So we give you both options.
The hardware for a prompter is wonderful, but the software is what actually makes the difference, because if the software can't keep up with the speaker, you're stuck. What software does CueScript support?
We're going to be introducing our software at NAB. Right now we work with all the major softwares. Basically they're all going to be putting out a composite or a digital signal. Our monitors can take that in. The real key to that speed control is having a good speed control to your software, and what really makes the difference is the operator. The operator is what takes an average speaker and makes them look like a great speaker.
But it seems to me that sometimes you can't work with a really qualified prompter operator. You're grabbing a production assistant off the floor to say, help run the prompter. What's your software likely to do to simplify that problem? How do we solve that challenge?
Well, what we're doing with our software is a little bit different. Is we're introducing a brand new software written from the ground up. So there's no legacy in that, and it's going to be a much cleaner, fresh approach to it. But there is still a human factor to being an operator that we can't instill in the person. They have to have some innate capability there.
Well, true. When we're trying to decide what prompter to use, there's a lot of prompters that are out there from a lot of different companies. What criteria should we use? Help us to pick the right prompter for our task. And let's say that there's two. One is we're in a documentary film shoot, but we've got a little bit of time to set up. Second is, say, a studio operation where you're trying to pick a good studio prompter. How do you decide which one to use?
The most important thing is your talent's capabilities. Because what people think is, I'm going to get a smaller camera, I'm going to get a smaller prompter. The problem with that mentality is, just because the camera's smaller doesn't make the talent's eyes any better. So I really need to choose my prompter based on who's going to be using it, what distance they're going to be using it in, what the lighting conditions are going to be. So what we're basically doing is we're making sure that we get the right size for the application, the brightness so they can read it, whether it's outside or inside. Then you're going to want to know about the input so that I can put whatever signal I have into it. And then, as you said, how do I set it up and tear it down? And that's one of the things that we really did concentrate heavily on as well. So we really wanted a rounded package.
The other challenge is there's light lost as it goes through the prompter glass.
Correct.
How much light should we assume to lose as the prompter glass takes it away?
You're basically losing 40%.
But how much?
40%. We can change that 30%, 40% by changing the glass. In the old days, that used to be a serious problem, but with the sensitivity of the cameras today, it's actually not a problem. Really, the cameras really have overcome that.
You've talked about all the different criteria that we have to work with to pick a prompter. Give us an example. If we're inside or we're outside, but what I'm trying to nail down is I'm trying to figure out more specifically what do we look for. So you've given me the questions to answer, but you haven't given me the answers yet.
Right.
So help me get a little bit more detail on picking prompter. You've told me what the criteria are. How do I answer the criteria?
Well, one of the criteria in the studio, and this is also going to play into the field, is you want a rigid system so that when you're making a camera move that the prompter doesn't introduce its own move. So you really want to have a rigid mounting system that holds the weight, it really supports the unit properly, and the prompter doesn't introduce moves into the camera. So in the studio, that's absolutely a steadfast rule. In the field, it's no different, but most prompters have made very lightweight to get into the field and don't have that capability. So what we've done is made a mounting system that takes that studio robustness and gives it to you in the field. In the field, you have the added concern of how long, how fast, and what problems are the prompter is going to introduce. You want to make sure you have a prompter where all the parts are captive, that you don't need to introduce tools, and that work fast. A lot of times prompters don't get used because people are so concerned about the problems that they introduce versus the solutions that they bring. And as you said earlier, it is one of the strongest solutions to production to have a prompter there. There's so many less takes, there's so much more confidence with your talent, and it's a great tool. We want to make it easy enough for you to get out there and use it.
When do you pick an over or below the lens prompter versus a through the lens prompter?
Wherever possible, you want to be shooting directly through the prompter glass. You don't want over or under.
How come?
Because as you get closer to the talent, when they start to read, you're actually going to see them looking above or below the lens, and that is very distracting. So we love to work with a mirrored prompter instead of a direct view prompter. There are some applications when you're on jibs where you don't want to introduce a piece of mirror. There are applications on Steadicam because of weight that we will do direct view. But wherever possible, you're going to get a much better eye contact having it through the lens.
Another would be a dramatic scene where you want to prompt talent, but they don't want to be looking at the lens. You'd have an off-the-lens prompter in a situation like that, would you
Correct.
not?
Correct.
Where can people go to learn more information about CueScript and the products you guys offer?
Our website is www.CueScript.tv.
CueScript makes prompters, and you can learn more at their website at CueScript, CueScript.tv. And Michael Accardi is the CEO and the president of CueScript. Michael, thanks for joining us today.